Saturday, December 31st, 2016. Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. This is a summary of the January 2017 WebBot report, or ALTA report, which actually means Asymmetric Linguistic Trends Analysis. And it's a report compiled by Cliff High of Half Past Human. And before I begin, I'd like to talk about what the WebBot report is and the technology. I know a lot of you know what it is already, but we always get new viewers, and I think it's just fair to clarify, what it really is. So I'll read here about predictive linguistics and our methods according to Cliff High. He says, predictive linguistics is the process of using computer software to aggregate vast amounts of written text from the internet by categories delineated by emotional content of the words. Predictive linguistics uses emotional qualifiers and quantifiers expressed as numeric values for each and all words, phrases discovered, filtered in the aggregation process. And he goes on to say over 80% of all the words gathered will be discarded for one or more reasons. And he also says predictive linguistics works to predict future language about perhaps future events. So, he's not a prophet, Cliff High. He's trying to forecast interpreting the data due to the nature of humans. It is my operating assumption, that means Cliff High's assumption, that all humans are psychic, though the vast majority do not cultivate it as a skill and are likely unaware of it themselves. In spite of this, universe and human nature has it that they leak prescient information out continuously in their choice of language. And he goes on to say, my software processing collects these leaks and aggregates them against a model of a timeline that information is provided in this report. So let's go ahead now and start with the summary of the actual report. And the title of the report, which I recommend people purchase for $15, that's what it costs, a monthly report. It's almost 50 pages, so it's almost like a small book. The title for this report is Sci-Fi World, and it's forecast for December 2016 through 2046. So a lot of these forecasts are very long-term forecasts. They don't happen, right away. So let's start out with what he calls metadata, right? And he says that the metadata of the last two reports is pointing to a sci-fi world. And he goes on to say that this metadata has been showing in data since 1998, but it's really kind of grown in the last few months, the data. And he says Half Past Human has confidence in forecasts in spite of the fantastic and sci-fi quality of much of the info coming through our processing. So let's hear. Yeah, he goes on to say at a metadata layer, basically slicing data out of all the entities around a common theme such as security or secrets, the sci-fi world has been just erupting out of our data these last two reports. The new data sets began accruing in late 2015 for significant change in what we can call the operational paradigm for humanity without actually hinting as to what direction we'd be taking. So, and he goes on to say, over the course of 2016, especially from April onward, the data sets have been slowly at first and then faster as the year progressed, settling in supporting position of our descriptor sci-fi world. So that's the metadata. Now he moves on to world changes, or Terra as he calls world change. He says long-term data showing ice age running from about 2025 through to 2047. He says increasing seismic activity to planet in 2017 will result in visibly apparent changes in landforms and the coastline and in coastline alterations. It says there's a reference to Port of London being affected by water flows, maybe something with the Thames. Problems from global shipping, data like trapped ships in mud. And let's see here, what else? Yeah, he goes on to say, yet more data within the Terra entity is forecasting expressed or manifesting ice age, and its symptoms are going to intrude on human awareness over 2017 and 2018. These sets have the ice age as a cause or prompt for old persons diaspora in 2018-2019. He goes on to say, and I quote, the warmists, or those persons pursuing a climate warming agenda, are showing up as being in crisis as the cold climate change symptoms are described as slamming into their plans. So that's quite interesting. Now we go into the global pop and the changes within global population. The main thing he says, the US dollar world, which is the Western world that uses fiat money, I guess, the developed world, will be upside down and inside out over 2017. Says data showing first few days following January 8th, 2017 are going to be initiation for chaos in global markets, will be blamed on pending power shift in USA pop. I guess that's they're going to blame the incoming new administration in the US maybe. And it says problem will really originate from in Europe through the derivatives market and counterparty risk. Something I've spoken about before as well. So we move now to India subcontinent theater, pop war, India pop. Basically, he's saying here, and I quote, the data are showing that by the end of March, it will be acknowledged that the India pop is in revolt, with new power centers being created away from officialdom. The forecasts are a very rough year or years for India pop as the war against cash, gold, and populism escalates and India pop responds. So more and more trouble concerning the monetary crisis in India, the demonetization we saw in November. That's apparently is going to continue, and the public are going to get very angry, according to the Webbop report. What else here? There's another one for the UK pop. It's called Pop War, UK Block War. Basically saying there's going to be clashing communities and religious war. And he goes on to say the UK Block War is described as sparking over a pending incident between migrants, established residents, also immigrants, and local police. The details are suggesting that the established community members will become embroiled in a fistfight with smuggled migrants that will draw local police attention. So that's the UK pop. There's not much more for the UK pop in this publication for this month. Australia pop is very long, and so I recommend people who are interested in the Australia pop, really, if you can, buy the report. I can't really go through all of it, but I'll read the most, the ones that I think are most important. And it says here, there are many new sets for the Australia pop that are describing the role it will be playing in the Antarctica wealth boom. These sets are showing that huge levels of investment will be made in Australia as the Antarctica discovery becomes open knowledge and the corporations begin to stage for the boom. Let's see. He touches upon the Australian banking system, says Australian banking system is popping up as being a developing hotspot in the February currencies storms that are more general in theme in global pop, wherever the dollar has sway over local currencies. The thing to note about hotspots in animals or banking systems is that they represent energy blockages, and once scratched, thereafter require continuous scratching until the nerves are exhausted. So what else? He goes on to say the longer term sets for a monetary currency base coming out of Australia pop sets are still building supporting sets for a temporal marker of a secret revealed in the meaning of some as yet undiscovered silver and other metals in what is being described as a curious vein that further is forecast as being discovered through a landslip. So quite interesting there for Australia. Let's see. Real estate. Australia real estate crisis is showing as moving into political instability as the corruption scandals escalate and dirty details come out involving banks. So now we go to Canada Pop. Canada Pop, let's see here. Yeah, Canada Pop basically talks about flexible mineral. He says the flexible mineral discovery language is now becoming dominated by immediacy data. So indicating that 2017 is a likely year for the find, if not the announcements about it. And it says the data has the Canadian government being absolutely giddy about the discovery of these flexible minerals. Their reason for showing such will be put down to economic boost. So some kind of new metal mineral discovery in Canada. So let's go to the Italy Pop. More and more data about banking failures, and he says here the continuing failure of the Italian banks is forecast to lead to the failure of the Italian banking system as we move into 2017. It says failure of the banking system is being very rapidly visible in late 2017 in the midst of both nasty winter and earthquakes in Italy. Not great news for Italy. Now the USA Pop is pages long, so I'm going to take out a couple of parts that I think are quite significant. He says, it is official, not only in our data, but within the larger mass of the internet spew, it is now quite clear that a very large awakening wave has indeed passed through the Western dollar-slaved populations. This awakening wave is just starting to manifest according to our data and will continue for at least the next decade. This is being forecast as there will be a national effort for some years from now to recall and replace all the propaganda scoop text here in USA Pop. So that's quite interesting. An awakening of the USA Pop. So, and he goes on to say, the data has USA Pop describing 2017 as both intense and disruptive, even as the year is less than half completed. By summer, USA Pop is described as reeling from impacts of the burst of self-awareness that had been forced upon much of the unwilling population by the currencies crisis at a global level with specific focus on the personal wallet. So Now I'm going to move into the markets entity, which is something that most of you are interested in. So let's have a look here. He says, that since he started doing the Alta reports in 1997, that he's had data about Dow 20,000 and that it would be a temporal marker for silver moving to $600 an ounce. And he discussed this apparently in radio interviews in the early 2000s. So he's been forecasting this, and just because silver hasn't gone to 600 yet doesn't mean he's wrong, because a lot of these datas come for a longer term perspective, and it's still showing, and we're very near Dow 20,000, and according to him that would be a temporal marker for silver. He talks a little bit about that, how he talked about this in early 2000s already. So let's go deeper into this market report. He says there are several large sets within the markets entity which have been in place for a number of years that are attached to both the bonds subset via mutually held subsets with the currency's crisis. The currency's crises are described as being serial and attached as pearls on a string, or as peas in a pod, like next to each other. On the other hand, the bond crisis is described as originating in late 2016 to become one long, grinding, growing, growling crisis from that point forward until into early March 2018. So yeah, interest rates have started going up in the bond markets, and they might come back down a bit, but the report, he's interpreting the data as saying that, the crisis has started, late this year, and it's going to be a protracted bond crisis. It's not going to happen all at once, but, into March 2018. So, about 18 months or so. So that's about the bonds. Let's have a look here. What else have we got? Yeah, he goes on to say, the currency's crash has been a long-term feature of these reports, with intermittent events over the years reinforcing the meme. Now we have a ballooning of the new data within these sets that show a kickoff of the currency's deflation episode to begin in about mid-February 2017, with the larger impacts coming over March and April into a fully formed global currency crisis by May 2017. So that's interesting. What else have we got here? They have to commute by train to go to work. Oh yeah, and this is more about compared to metals. Continental Europe, the markets entity much long had sets that tied higher Bitcoin as it was about 20 years ago or so, or a little longer. I think the conservative government in the mid 90s or early 90s, they privatized the railroads. Bitcoin is back in the 50s for a number of years. The UK government have had hundreds of temporal markets. They nationalized the railroads 50 or 60s. These I'm not sure when. To gain supporting values, and it's been a mess, and in the lead mode. I think the problem is they precious metals the wrong way, race to catch up, because at that point, Southeastern and other companies that linguistic connections that show gold, they still have like a monopoly, and they get government subsidies. So they keep raising prices, and the services keep getting worse. and there's a lot of people that come on the news, supposedly specialists or economists, and they say, "Oh, we need to nationalize the railroads again." But I don't think that is the solution. Personally, I don't think it will get any better.
Data
and one thing people don't look at is that in the past, when the railroads were built in the 19th century, Industrial Revolution, the railroad companies were not. It wasn't something done by the UK government. It was private capital.
These prices range from $125 per ounce to over $300.
I don't think the solution to
it goes on to note, these prices are not all within affordability
of railroads,
represent the global spread
or the service. I don't think the answer to it is to nationalize it and make it a government company. I think that will make it worse. I just think they did the wrong, they went about it the wrong way when they privatized the Bitcoin. Now
he says, and I quote,
but people just think, oh, it's private now, so it needs to be nationalized to make it better. But I don't think that's the solution. I think the solution is to have as little government involvement
to describe
a China economy. Let the market,
China population
that will be dedicated to getting
let the market
so be the arbiter, of
dedicated
prices and services.
He goes on to say,
let the consumer and the market interact.
We have some
and when you say that to people, who say, "Oh, but we've got a market system now; it's all private."
These are $888.
They're greedy. They're raising the prices. Well, it's not a true free market.
These numbers are
they've got like franchises that will last for a long time.
Says also
they've got subsidy by the government still. So that's what I wanted to talk about. Nowadays it seems that
it's the Chinese currency.
A lot of people, and especially on the left, they think that the solution to everything is
a bit more
nationalizing things, but they forget that our banking system has been.
He goes on to say, and I quote,
"Is not
totally
descriptor sets continue to grow by any stretch of the imagination. In the U.S., in the U.K., and Europe, our banking system has been subsidized by the taxpayer."
That the age of gold
and they think it's a private and free market, but it's not.
Humanity at many levels.
I personally think the real big problem is the monopoly of the money through central banks. Once we get rid of that and we have free market money, I think it will be better for everyone to have not just capital, but also labor.
But the
government's function is just to,
in the large, massive gold references,
administer the rule of law,
the emergence,
property,
visibility of a mental shift,
property rights,
global pop that
the individuals
hereafter for
rights,
decades, perhaps recognize gold as money. Very interesting.
Assault and things like that. That's
it for the
market
is there to do.
There's a lot more. We don't need more government. The problem is we've got too much government.
I feel I need to
look at all the national debt we've got. That's government.
We now go into
do we really need more government? I don't think so. So I leave you here now with this market update and a little bit of economics based.
Let's see here.
On the UK situation. And if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up.
The many
also,
new data sets for
if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do. And if you really enjoyed this video, share it with other people
sets for what is being
far and wide. And that, by the way, is technology.
The Shih Tzu.
With the sometimes he sits there and listens to me. Sometimes he just sleeps.
Doesn't
really care too much about economics.
This use of the word precious in relation to the technology.
So I'll talk to you later. Take care.
And supports energy as the primary support.
They have to commute set by train to go to work.
Sets the data suggests
compared to continental Europe, the prices here are much
that are new to modern
higher
are the primary price.
About 20 years ago or so, or a little longer, I think the conservative government in the mid-90s or early 90s, they privatized the railroads because back in the 50s,
during the U.S. elections,
the UK government,
the head
they nationalized the railroads 50s or 60s. I'm not sure when.
So
and it's been a mess, and I think the problem is they privatized it the wrong way.
What else
and because Southeastern and other
I quote,
companies that
"A
run
very
the
large part of
lines,
the Space Gold
they
Farts
still have like a
entity,
monopoly, and
something
they
over
get government
30%
subsidies.
by Visuous
So
Say,
they
is
keep
composed
raising
of
prices,
new stuff
and the
sets.
services
These
keep
new
getting
stuff
worse.
sets
And there's a
aggregate
lot of
many
people that
new
come on the news,
technologies, new
supposedly
materials, and new
specialists or
theories,
economists, and
new
they say,
math.
"Oh, we
There
need
are
to
forecasts
nationalize
to
the
arise
railroads
from
again."
the
But
innovation
I don't
wave,
think that is the
now
solution.
underway
Personally, I don't think it will
throughout
get any
humanity.
better.
So the Space Gold
And
Farts
one
is
thing
more
people
like
don't
the hidden
look at is
agenda
that in the
maybe, or
past, when the railroads
elites
were
or
built
something,
in the
it's a bit
19th century,
wacky,
Industrial Revolution, the
know,
railroad companies
entity,
were
I would
not.
say.
It wasn't
To do
something
with
done by the
UFOs
UK
and
government.
new discoveries.
It was
So
private
that's what he
capital.
talks about in the Space Gold Farts.
so-
there is, of course, quite a bit more.
I don't think the
under
solution
this,
to
entity.
the
So
affordability of railroads.
now we come to the conclusion,
or
of
the
his reports.
service. I don't
And
think the answer
his
to it is to
conclusion
nationalize
tainted
it and make
vision
it a government
clearly seen.
to,
And he goes on to say,
company.
and I quote, "A vision
I
of the
think that will
future is
make it
emerging
worse.
now and
I just think they
intensifying over
did
this next
the
year
wrong,
that is
they
described
went
by
about
our
it the
data
wrong
as
way when
driving
they
humanity
privatized the
forward
railroads
for
in
the
this
next
country.
few centuries.
But
This is in
people
spite of
just
both
they
the
just think,
expansion
oh,
of
it's
Earth
private
events
now, so it
and
needs
the
to be
cyclical
nationalized to
return
make
of
it
Ice
better.
Age conditions.
But I don't think that's the
So
solution. I think the
guess
solution is
it's
to
all
have
to do with this
as
sci-fi
little
world,
government involvement
world,
in the economy. Let the
There's gonna
market
be big changes coming.
decide.
next,
Let the market be
10,
the
20
arbiter,
years, and for
of
the rest,
prices
the
and
next hundreds of years
services.
from all these
Let the
discoveries.
consumer and the market
So quite
interact.
interesting.
And when you say
If
that
you
to people,
enjoyed
say,
this
"Oh,
video,
but we've got
give
a
me a
market
thumbs
system
up.
now; it's all private."
I know
and
Cliff
they're
High and the Webbot.
they're greedy. They're raising the
controversial.
prices.
He
Well,
doesn't get everything
it's
right.
not a
He
true
says
free
he
market.
tries to interpret the
they've
data
got
and
like franchises that
these forecasts are not
will last for a
supposed to
long
happen
time.
today or
They've
tomorrow.
got
Some of them
subsidy by
are,
the
but
government
not all
still.
of them.
So
some of them have.
That's
like
what I wanted to talk
decades
about.
Of,
Nowadays it seems that
latent, forecasts.
most
10,
people, a
20
lot of
years
people,
hence.
especially on the left, they think
so
that the
yeah.
solution to everything is nationalizing things.
And
but
yeah,
they
so
forget
if
that,
you enjoyed this
our
video as
banking
well, share
system
it
has
far
been,
and wide. Subscribe to my channel if
it's
you
not
haven't yet.
totally
if you'd like to donate
private
to my channel
by
as well,
any
there's some
stretch of
links
the
below in the
imagination.
description. I wish
in
you
the
all
US,
a
in
happy
the UK,
new
in
year
Europe, our banking system
and
is,
prosperous
has
new
been
year, and I'll
subsidized
talk to
by
you
the
later. Take care.
taxpayer.
Bye.
And they think